Aliens Explored is a podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
Numerous theories and conspiracies have developed around the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, ranging from laboratory experiments gone wrong, unnatural interactions with animals, to an all-out biological attack. But there is one group of scientists who have theorised that the virus may have arrived on a meteor that lit up the skies 2,000 miles north of Wuhan in October 2019. Join us on Aliens Explored as we ask, could COVID-19 have come from space?
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Aliens Explored, your weekly podcast where we look into UFOs, UAPs, alien abductions, cattle mutilations, and all manner of otherworldly events. I am one of your hosts, Stu Jackson.
And I'm your other host, Neil Kelly.
And hello, Neil. It's good to see you again. We're talking about COVID.
Hello, Stu. It's good to see you too. Glad to see you. You're still yeah, COVID. So COVID has been with us for over a year now. I think I had a case of it. I've had my first vaccine against it. Get my second one next week. You've just had yours today?
Today, this very day. Well, not the day that the listeners are listening to it, but yeah, because we record these in advance. Peek behind the curtain there, listeners. But yes, when is this going out? This is going out 28th of May. Yeah, so I'd have had my first one a month ago. You'll have had your second one by the time this goes out.
Oh yeah, I'll get my second one on May the 4th.
Oh, Star Wars Day.
May the 4th go with you. Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
4th be with you.
Star Wars
yeah.
Day. May the 4th be with you. It is officially Star Wars Day.
Is it?
Yeah, for that reason. Yeah. My Star Trek stream, we're going to be doing a Star Wars special on the 2nd because it goes out on Sunday. So
May the 4th.
Yeah, for May the 4th. There you go. But yeah, so we're starting to come out of COVID land a little bit, what with our vaccinations.
Well, we hope we are.
Things starting to open up. Well, it's starting to look a bit brighter and a bit better. And in fact, I've been staying in for most of it, and keeping myself as safe as possible and not going out except for absolute emergency stuff. But I've actually booked to go to a music festival at the end of August. Would you believe?
Well, I suppose August seems a long way off now, doesn't it? So
it's
we all hope the world will change by then. I'm not optimistic at all.
No, well, I'm mentioning it because it does have a connection with this show because it's in the grounds of a pub. This music festival. It's not a huge, it's not like Burning Man or anything. There's like 300 tickets maximum.
Right.
So it's a small music festival over August bank holiday weekend. But the pub it's in was always known as the Crop Circle pub because it's right in the middle of like crop circle country. It's in Wiltshire. It's right in the epicenter of it all, but inside the pub, which is like this beautiful 200-year-old, it's right on the banks of a canal. Absolutely amazing. Inside they had all these amazing, fantastic murals of the Wiltshire countryside and crop circles, and even the pool table was a custom pool table where instead of like white spots, it was all different crop circles, and they were a microbrewery, so they had like Area 51 beer and that sort of thing. Absolutely amazing. A few years ago, it got bought out by a corporation, and all that went.
Of course, yeah.
It's lost all its character as a result, but which is a shame. But the music festival's good fun, and I'll be going with some fun people. So that's the key thing. But yeah, so while I'm there at the end of August, there might even be some crop circles. So I'm planning to go out and see if I can find a crop circle or two whilst I'm in that area. So I might be coming back with a report, Neil.
Are you taking your drone with you? Go
I hadn't thought about it, but I might do.
That's the easiest way to look for crop circles, isn't it? Send that up.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but I might do.
I suppose the main reason we're not thinking about it is probably not legal, is it?
Yes, I'm a qualified drone pilot.
Are you? But I mean, you can only fly in certain areas with permission.
Only if they're over a certain size. If it's under 250 grams, you're fine.
Oh, is that right? You can fly them anywhere.
Well, the very modern ones have specific ratings and categories, and that'll be actually printed on the drone itself. Right. If it's not printed on the drone, then if it's 249 grams or under, it's fine. Yes, you can use it, because you've mentioned this a few times on the show, like you've got this drone that you're not allowed to use, and I keep thinking, I need to mention this to you, that actually that might not be the case. You might be allowed to use it.
Even though I'm not a qualified drone pilot, I'd just be a guy getting a gift out of a box, plugging it in and sending it out.
It depends on the type of drone, basically.
Yeah.
If it's got a camera attached, you're getting into a bit more difficult territory. But if there's no camera, then
it's got a camera.
Pretty much. If it's got a camera, then you are into slightly different territory there. And of course, it's always a good idea to have insurance. And of course, if you are qualified, that's the best way to get insurance.
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't necessarily. I mean, certainly I could fly a drone. I could fly my drone in your street, no problem.
Okay.
Legally,
because you're a qualified pilot.
Because I'm a qualified pilot. Because I know the rules, like you can't go over a certain height and things like that. Yeah.
Did it take long to qualify to be a drone pilot?
No, it took me about half an hour online.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did an online test. It's not as onerous as
but
as
you're still
people
a
might
qualified
think.
Drone pilot.
I am a qualified drone pilot. Well, I am, because I'm a filmmaker, so I use it as part and parcel of that.
I think it's highly likely that the next time we speak, I will also be a qualified drone pilot, given what you tell me.
Excellent. Well, keep us up to date on that. Definitely. Yes. So coming back to COVID, then, our episode today is about whether or not COVID-19 may have come from space.
Now, there are all sorts of theories about where COVID-19 came from on there, whether it was caused by someone eating a bat or a pangolin, or whether it was an experiment in a lab that went wrong, or whether it was actually biological warfare being waged against us by the Chinese. So here we have this theory, possibly, that this came from space.
Yes.
And it's got a specific name, this theory. It's panspermia.
Panspermia. We actually mentioned it a couple of episodes ago, in episode 42, when we were talking about, could humanity have come from another planet originally? Well, panspermia is this idea that there is living biological material out in space that basically hits the planet and then multiplies and spreads. And of course, we talked about it in that instance of possibly being an origin of humanity, but it's equally possible that it could bring bacteria and virus, very similar to the film The Andromeda Strain. Are you familiar with that? I say film, it's a book.
And I recently read the book, the Michael Crichton book, which was written, I think, in the late 60s. I think the film was made in about
69.
69, and a film was made in 1971, both highly rated.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I don't rate them. I was
Really?
enjoying the book, but the ending is a real cop out. I don't want to no spoilers here, but it was I mean, maybe it wasn't seen as such a cop out in 1969, but it certainly is now. But in the Andromeda strain, what that was about was that the US government was sending up basically satellites who would they'd identify that there was bacteria or viruses living in the upper reaches of our atmosphere, and they basically send a satellite out to go and scoop it up.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these satellites crash lands near a small town in the southwest USA, and everybody dies pretty quick, or pretty much, apart from 2 people. Everyone just drops dead almost instantly.
Yes, their pH balance in their blood is different, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's it's the difference between being perfectly fine, no harm at all, or dropping dead on the spot. So yeah, it's an exciting idea, but I've never heard this idea before about there being harvestable germs up in the atmosphere that could be harvested and used as a weapon.
Well, the idea that biological material may sort of rain down on us from space, actually, the ancient Greeks theorised that. It's not a new theory at all. The whole panspermia thing, that goes back to them.
And what about things like the miasma theory? I mean, before people knew about, for cholera, for instance, before Dr. John Snow worked out that it was caused by sewage getting into the drinking water supply.
Dr. John Snow, he knows nothing.
He knows, but people believed it was this miasma that would appear over a town and cause the disease. That's what they believe that diseases were caused by.
Well, scientific theory has gone forward and backward many times. I mean, we talk, about a few hundred years ago, and people thinking that the world was flat. Well, again, you go back a few thousand years before that, they knew it was round.
Yeah, they worked out. It's simple geometry. It's simple. I think the ancient Greeks worked out that if you stand on something high, you can see further.
Yeah.
Because it's because of geometry. The curve of the Earth, the higher you are, the further over the curve you can see. And sailors at sea, when they saw a ship approaching over the horizon, it would look like the ship was coming up out of the water because it's coming over the curve.
Not just that, but Pythagoras using, and I don't know the entire mathematics of this, but using a stick in a hole in the ground and measuring the shadows that it cast, was able to work out the size of the planet. And he got it almost dead on.
Wow.
So, yeah. So we've known for a long time that it's round. It's just like sometimes someone will come along with something really stupid that sounds good.
Yeah.
And, it puts scientific knowledge back.
And I think, current flat earthers, a large part of it is simply the rejection of what we're being told. Rejection of official information. Yeah, you say it's round. Well, I've only got your word for it. You've shown me a picture of it. Well, that's your picture. I choose not to believe you. It's like, there's some people saying, well, the government is so untrustworthy that the warning on a packet of cigarettes says, smoking can severely damage your health. Sorry, who's saying this? Oh, Her Majesty's government is saying this. Well, why should I believe them? They lie about everything else. Maybe smoking is really good for you.
Yeah. It's not. Just to be clear with our listeners, it's really, really not.
This is not an endorsement of smoking. So we're talking about the idea that COVID-19 came from a meteorite. Now,
yes, you mentioned the meteorite.
A meteor was spotted in northeast China on October the 11th, or it was a bright fireball over the city of Songwan in northeast China on October the 11th, 2019.
Yes. Now, Songwan, though, is about 2,000 kilometres northeast of Wuhan. But there is this theory. Of course, it's travelling through the sky, and it's breaking up as it does so. So the idea is that, maybe part of it broke off as it travelled over
Well,
Wuhan.
it would have had to, wouldn't it? Because a meteor travels at cosmic speeds. I mean, a meteor would be travelling at something like 40,000 miles an hour. By comparison, the muzzle velocity of an AR-15 rifle is 3,000 feet per second, which is about 2,000 miles per hour. So it's going 20 times the speed of a high velocity round.
Blimey.
So it's going pretty fast. So and that's why you get this explosion when it hits, because as it's travelling through the air, obviously an object travelling through the air will push air molecules out of the way. But if it's a large enough object going fast enough, the molecules can't get out of the way, so the air in front of it becomes compressed. And when air is compressed, as you'll know if you've ever pumped up a bicycle tyre, as you're pumping away, it gets hot. And so it gets superheated. And so just before impact, you get this massive explosion. Basically, the air just explodes.
Wow.
And so whatever's on the meteor would have had to have fallen off. And
yes,
and decelerated rapidly. Well, decelerated as it descended to Earth, and didn't get consumed in the fireball that struck. So,
yeah. So I mean, the timing is quite interesting. That you do get this meteorite just before this outbreak in Wuhan.
Well, I mean, I suppose we get meteors hitting on a fairly infrequent basis, don't we?
We do, but if I mean, let's say with this panspermia idea that it's quite rare. Let's say there's 1 in 2,000. I'm pulling that number completely out of thin air, but let's say 1 in 2,000 contains biological material. That still means if you have 2,000 meteorites, one of them's going to contain biological material.
But unless the meteor actually breaks up in the atmosphere, in the air, once it's entered the atmosphere, it actually starts breaking up and releasing the biological material to drift down to Earth. It will, if it stays intact, it will all just be destroyed in the explosion on impact.
Unless it's something that can survive an explosion.
Yeah, but
if it can survive extreme heat.
If it can survive, very extreme heat. I mean, you're talking like a nuclear explosion. That sort of power.
There are examples of terrestrial life that could survive it.
What? That could survive ground zero of a nuke.
There's life forms that exist basically in volcanic environments.
Yeah, but it's not the kind of heat that turns sand to glass, is it? Which is what happens.
Oh no, it's the radiation that cockroaches would survive. No, I was going to think of something else then, but no.
Yeah, they wouldn't survive the fireball or the blast if they were within range of it, but they would survive the radiation.
But if you're talking about viral, single-celled organisms, if there's, why wouldn't it? Mostly when we destroy viruses by heat, it's the irradiation of them. If they're immune to irradiation by heat, certainly the physical explosion is not going to do anything to them.
Yeah, I'm purely in the realm of speculation here.
I mean, that's what this show's all about.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't know what life forms could survive being aboard a meteor that hits the planet at thousands of miles per hour with the resulting fireball. I don't know what could survive that impact.
Well, no, and if it's chunks of the meteor coming off, then they only have to survive in that chunk.
What I'm thinking is if chunks are falling off, then the bacteria, the bacteriological material is just floating free, drifting down to Earth over a wide area.
That sounds pretty pandemic to me.
As it flies, as the meteor whooshes over Wuhan, it's releasing, spraying. It's biological material. So this space theory is a group of researchers, notably an Edward J. Steele and N. Chandra Wickamran Singh. and they published 10 papers on the topic since the pandemic began.
Yep.
But what they haven't got is the empirical proof. They haven't got a chunk of meteor containing any residue of, or any. They can show that this meteor definitely contained the COVID-19 virus.
Well, no. If there was proof, it wouldn't be a theory.
All right. Yeah. That's okay. So
sorry, that was a bit shooting you down. I didn't mean it quite like that.
It's a theory, but the scientific method. You develop a theory. You notice something. Or a coincidence of things, perhaps. You develop a theory, and then you devise an experiment to test that theory to see if it's true. Well, they haven't gone beyond developing this theory. They've noticed that there was a meteor strike, and then there was a pandemic.
Well, that's not always the case. In psychology, Freud's theories are generally considered to be, mostly accepted. There are different schools of thought in psychology, but Freud was famous for providing untestable theories.
But that's the difference between social science and natural science, isn't it? I mean, the scientists will always say about social sciences, well, they're not scientific because they can't meet these very tight criteria for the natural sciences. A scientist can say that water will always boil at 100 degrees centigrade at sea level. Always. But whereas if you try and predict human behaviour, psychologists will say, well, no, I can't predict what any individual who I don't know will do in any situation, but you can predict how people will behave en masse to some extent.
Okay, I'm going to say there are cases within psychology that you can do that. Pavlov, for example, famously created experiments to prove behaviour and learned behaviours.
Well, yeah, he famously trained his dogs, didn't he? That he would ring a bell and then feed them, ring a bell then feed them, and then when he rang the bell, the dogs would always just salivate because they were used to get.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bloody cruel, because he actually had metal tubes going into the saliva glands of the dogs. Horrible, horrible man, but we did learn a lot from him.
Yeah. And Schrodinger wasn't much nicer to his cat, was he? But according
that was a thought experiment. He didn't really put a cat in a box with poison.
So according to Discover website, what they're saying is this is not a theory with any evidence for it. There is no evidence that viruses or bacteria or any other life exist in space. And Steele et al. Provide no direct evidence that the coronavirus arrived from the heavens. It's a theory, as you say.
Well, actually, that's an incorrect statement, or at least part of that is incorrect, because we've discussed on this very show about meteorites that have been proven to contain biological material.
Did we do that?
Yeah, only a few episodes ago. There was the one that contained this small, almost microscopic metallic balls with a gooey substance inside. That's a biological material. So yes, there is proof that biological material exists in space.
Right.
It's not proof that COVID comes from space.
No.
I absolutely
scientists can't even agree on whether a virus is a living thing or not. Some scientists will say yes, it is, and others will say depending on their discipline, really.
Well, the whole how do you categorise what life is a difficult one for scientists to.
Well, there's no disputing that bacteria are alive. They display the characteristics of a living being, whereas a virus is just a lot of bad news wrapped in RNA, isn't it?
That's it. That's fair enough. So I get the impression that you're not buying into this theory, then, this idea that COVID came from space.
I buy into the idea, but Although I'm a social scientist by academic discipline, I would need more sort of natural scientific kind of levels of proof. And say, okay, show me that. You've got the theory. Fine, I'll go along with the theory. I accept that there's a theory. If I was putting up the money, I'd say okay. I will fund. I will fund further research if you want to prove your theory, but at the moment it's just the theory.
That's very interesting that you're taking that route, because I suggest this because I thought it'd be a fun topic to discuss. Because
but I'm making it not fun.
No. This has been a lot of fun. No, the reason I'm saying that is I absolutely don't believe a word of it. That I don't accept that it's come from space at all. No, I don't believe it for one moment. So I'm giving it no credence whatsoever. You're remaining more open-minded about it.
He's developed this theory. There is this coincidence of a meteor strike and the pandemic breaking out nearby. They've come up with this theory of the galaxy absolutely full of microorganisms living in comets and meteors and dust clouds and such like. So, yeah, I'm not prepared to say, it's all a load of bollocks, but yeah, where I start with saying it's just a theory. It's just a theory.
Yeah. I think the thing is COVID-19. I mean, it's basically a mutation of SARS, and SARS has been around for a very, very long time, hasn't it? And it is so close to SARS that the idea of something that similar to something already existing coming from space, unless SARS originally came from space, I think that's reaching now. I personally, I don't think. I think it's fun to speculate, but I mean, we've had it for a moment.
So we've had SARS outbreaks in the past. Peoples of China and Southeast Asia are well used to dealing with SARS. That's why they dealt with this latest one so well. And previous outbreaks, the H4N1, the bird flu, they were viruses that were too deadly to spread very far. They would kill their hosts far too quickly after infection, or make them very, very ill too soon after infection for it to. You wouldn't get people carrying it and being asymptomatic, or taking weeks before they develop any symptoms. So COVID-19 is the worst of all worlds, really, and it is the fact that if you said to people, well, it has a 98% survival rate. People say, well, yeah, it's great. So if I catch it, there's only a 2% chance that I'll die. Yeah, but when you've got thousands and when you've got millions of people catching it, that's an awful lot of dead bodies.
It is. So, well, as we've seen. But yeah, and we don't know what has caused it, and there are a variety of theories. I think we can absolutely agree it's definitely not caused by 5G. So stop it. Stop claiming nonsense like that.
But, we certainly do have to think about the way we live on this planet. And I do accept what a lot of environmentalists have said, that if we just carry on living, like if COVID were to end tomorrow, and all governments all around the world would give us the all clear, we could go back to doing exactly what we were doing back in 2019. It wouldn't be long before we had another outbreak like this, because it's built into the way we live.
Human nature is such. I never forget a quote from a woman who was in therapy. This is a true, genuine quote. So I'm going to avoid any names or circumstances. But she was in therapy, and she said to her therapist, she's talking about her life and how it was all going wrong, and she said, "I want my life to change. I just don't want to have to change."
Yeah.
which is the most face palmy thing you
face
can
palmy,
say.
but the fact that she actually said it, probably a lot of people don't realise that that's what they're thinking. They think, well, yeah, I want my life to be different, but I can't break all my habits. I like to do this, and I like to do that, and I can't understand why my life's going wrong.
That's exactly my point. That's human nature.
Yeah, it's human nature. We're not talking about changing human nature. We're talking about changing our economic arrangements.
Which would mean changing human nature.
No, it would mean just changing the way we do things. We have economic arrangements that benefit a small number of people.
To change how we do things, we would have to change human nature. The only reason we do things the way we do them now is because of our current nature.
We do.
You know what? We've gone way off topic, and we're going all political now. We're supposed to be talking about this, but human. Anyway. So, write-in listeners, tell us what you think, because we do want to hear. I mean, let us know if you think we've got it all wrong. Either way. And, of course, don't forget to leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts as well. They're always greatly received, and it helps other people to find podcasts like ours as well. Don't forget to join us next time, though, when we'll be discussing Phil Schneider.
Phil Schneider.
He's an interesting character, isn't he, Neil?
Yeah, very interesting character, yes. A man who's actually fought a pitched battle deep beneath the earth against alien greys.
So we'll be discussing, is he a whistleblower or a fantasist? Don't forget to join us next time when we'll find out. We'll discuss it.
We'll catch you next time, yeah.
In the meantime,
we'll just edit out all those big arguments we had.
In the meantime, keep watching those meteorites and the rest of the skies. Take care for now.
Catch you later. Bye-bye.
Aliens Explored is a Figo Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter and Facebook by searching Aliens Explored or visit aliensexplored.com.